All right. I'm glad to be back here at DevOpsDays London. It's been a few years since I've been here. I used to live in town. I work for PagerDuty now. I used to work at Chef. And we have an office in Moorgate, so I look vaguely familiar. I have been here before. I have the tea towel from a past DevOpsDays London. Always original, between the crochet logos and the tea towel, like definitely one of a kind of event. So I'm going to talk about tackling alert fatigue. We're going to discuss SLOs, automation, and machine learning. I do work at PagerDuty. I'm not going to talk about our tools today. If you'd like to talk about PagerDuty, grab me at the break or at lunch or whatever. Happy to do that, help you out with whatever your questions might be or anything like that. I've been doing this for a while. This white paper I wrote for O'Reilly was in 2012. So been doing some DevOps stuff for a while. If you'd like to get in touch with me about anything else, I am on Blue Sky. You can hit me up on LinkedIn. If you have questions about PagerDuty, join our community and we will route your questions to wherever they belong. So, what is alert fatigue? Who feels like they have experienced alert fatigue as part of their job? This is a safe space. Yeah, it's okay, we can share. Like I was a sysadmin before DevOps kind of got started and like totally have been fatigued by alerts. The blinking lights are a curse and a blessing at the same time for a lot of us. But we are inundated sort of constantly by our infrastructure, by the components that we run, by the services that we put out into the world to get people to give us money for stuff, right? The things that we sell digitally. Alert fatigue kind of builds off of all of that stuff. It's all the alerts, all the alarms, all the notifications. They can all contribute to alert fatigue, and it doesn't matter if they are representing good things or they're representing bad things. It's just that there's things, and they all sort of bundle up together to contribute to these feelings of alert fatigue. And I have a link at the end on a podcast episode that I did with a colleague at Ox Security, and he had a webinar with an actual neuroscientist. So if you're really into this stuff on the science side, there's some really interesting bits about what alert fatigue does to the brain and like long term and that kind of stuff. And we're going to get into the very top level pieces of what it does to your job, basically. So what counts as an alert? When I say alert, I mean anything that is coming to a human being in real time and sort of demanding your immediate attention. There's a lot of stuff that we get that no longer has any meaning because we've just been sort of immune to it and we no longer pay any attention to it. And I pulled this meme because I find it hysterical. Like, for those who can't read it, it's a screen capture of an iPhone screen. And the Gmail icon has 100,000 notifications on it. At some point, you just gotta declare alert bankruptcy on that. Like, that's no longer meaningful, right? So it's just completely insane. But the poster says, excited to reach 100K on Gmail. Thanks, everyone, for the support on my creator journey. Yes, beautiful. The Gmail, which this is probably faked, but the Gmail response is, hey, so this is insane, because it kind of is, but you feel that way. If you're working in an operational context, it feels like you could be on the receiving end of 100,000 alerts in some very short time period. And we do have customers who have that kind of volume that they are sending to teams, and you're like, time out, man, like this is not helping. And there are reasons why this doesn't help anymore, right? Signs of alert fatigue. When we are thinking about the alerts that are coming in and what they represent, there's stuff that we probably want to take a look at because it's impacting the customer experience. Something's not working for the customers, so the system is telling us something is wrong. However, it's just buried under all of this other stuff that is also alerting us. So for the folks who are responsible for fixing that customer experience, for preserving that customer experience, they're wading through this miasma of all this other junk that's coming in from the systems. So we see delayed response times. We don't know which ones are an emergency when we're dealing with the kind of volume that some folks end up seeing. We miss important alerts because they kind of look like every other alert that's out there, and like we're not sure which ones are good, which ones are bad. We get to the point where we're ignoring all these false positives, And because they look like everything else, maybe we're also ignoring real things that are bad. So there's a lot of stuff that comes downstream of that. And we also, on the personal side, has increased propensity for burnout. We see this in studies that we've done across our accounts and our user base, where teams that have higher alert load have more turnover. We see this in the account in that this team had X people, suddenly there's X minus N people currently available in that account because people have left as the alert level goes up. Because that means more pages. It probably means more time outside of work hours that they're expected to respond to stuff. It decreases overall productivity. You're pulled out of flow all the time. You're working on this cool project, and then like all these alerts are going off in the background, and somebody has to stop what they're doing and take a look at them. So you lose all of the other stuff you were supposed to be working on. And we don't end up learning from any of this. We learned yesterday about postmortems, post-incident reviews. You don't have time to do any kind of reflection even, let alone real learning off of the stuff that you're getting when you're working at this volume. So all of these have real material impacts to your business, even if you're just supporting internal IT processes. Like there's a lot of stuff that can come in here, especially if the alerts are coming from like payroll systems and things like that, that you want to have constantly working because everybody likes to get paid, right? So methods for dealing with alert fatigue. Some top ones. Before we get into the more advanced tools, we're going to do a little bit of assessment of the junk that we're passing through our systems. The first one is don't alert on success. Get your dopa hit somewhere else, right? Like, yeah, it feels good. Hey, my thing worked. This is amazing. You don't have to know that in real time. For 99.9% of things, you do not need to know that in real time. I have talked to customers who have like these complex like ETL processes and things like that and need some like hand wavy magic in the middle. Everybody else, if it is working, let it work in silence. Put it in the quiet room, right? Like let it do its thing without notifying everybody all the time. Don't send alerts that aren't actionable. If I'm getting something that's just like, hey, this thing is broken. I don't know what that means. Or, hey, this thing is still a problem after 6 months that nobody's fixed it. I don't care anymore. Doesn't matter. Can't do anything about it. Shut it up. We also see everyone thinks their baby is beautiful, right? No one wants to admit that maybe their baby is ugly. You know, it happens. You put a service out there, you're really proud of it, you think it's going to be amazing. The customers are like, meh. And they don't care, they don't use it. So setting our urgencies and severities appropriately for the stuff that's actually out there is kind of a dark art, and it also takes a little bit of humility to be able to say, yeah, we worked hard on this thing. We put this thing out here. We really thought it was gonna be amazing. And there's like 6 people in like Malta who use it, and that's it. And you're like, what happened there? What was wrong? We need to call those people and figure out why they're using this thing. At the same time, if there's something wrong with it, maybe I don't have to be woken up at 3 a.m. about it. If I have stuff that's broken, and this happens, right? Like our developers are moving fast, right? They've got a 2-week sprint, and they have all these things coming out. They're doing constant pushes, deployments to production. If they're not really disciplined about also keeping the monitors up to date as they push everything out, you may have some lag in what's actually being pushed to, say, your monitoring tools versus what lives in production. That's hard, right? That is hygiene. That is some really conscientious resource deployment that you need to keep up with as you're deploying quickly. Not everyone is doing that. It's totally fine. It absolutely happens. But if you've got stuff out there that no longer works and it's just constantly alerting you because it's no longer up to date, turn it off, right? Sometimes you do this by accident, right? Like somebody pushes like the copyright update on January 2nd or whatever. You know, your copyright's now 2025 instead of 2024 on January 2nd, and then the monitors all go off. And you're like, sometimes that happens. But if you have something that's chronically broken, we're gonna turn it off. Went the wrong way there. There we go. Okay, so our pre-work to using any kind of advanced tooling is to clean all this junk up. So if you are in a place where you have so many of these alerts, stuff's coming in, it's not meaningful anymore, job one is really cleaning all of this stuff up. It is resource intensive. It is a deployment of resources that you may have to have that kind of tough discussion with your management. But remember all of those things that alert fatigue was causing, right? We're missing alerts. We're sacrificing customer experience because we haven't done this cleanup work. A lot of this stuff does feel like we're dealing with technical debt in its own way. It is its own sort of breed of technical debt. Do we go? Okay. So make some time to concentrate on cleaning up your existing alerts. Maybe it takes a couple of weeks to do that, especially if you're dealing with the kind of volume that we sometimes see in some of our new teams that come on board. Maybe it doesn't take you that long. Maybe it's just like you just been putting it off because it doesn't feel like fun work to do. It's very toily, and nobody likes to do toil. We can also ask our AI helpers to help us out with this, like make this thing better or let me know what this is supposed to mean. But we're looking at asking ourselves about the alerts that are coming in. And you can kind of do this in a snowball method, right? Start with the ones that are the noisiest, and then once you get those out of the way, then go to the next tranche of noisy ones till you get to the ones that are only one-offs or two-offs, and we let those ride if we don't have time. But we want to ask ourselves, number one, is it actionable? Can I do anything about this right now when you tell me about it? If not, dump it. Turn it into a metric, right? Especially if you have something that you've received from a development team and it's not really up to par for production use because they kind of ignored the operational requirements of the system, like that happens, right? You have to have that discussion with the product manager to be able to say, hey, we need this fixed, right? But if they're not prioritizing that in the backlog, you don't want to go on vibes. You want to give them some data to be able to say, hey, this thing has alerted us now 6 times in the past 2 weeks. That's up from 4 times in the previous 2 weeks. It looks like it may be getting worse. We'll continue to monitor it, but we really like to have it fixed, right? So you can have that discussion with your product managers. Is it actually urgent? Admitting to yourself, not everything we run is worth a Sev 1, right? Being able to have that conversation. Is there stuff that just could be a ticket? We just push it into Jira or whatever you're using for your ticketing system. Is it actually telling us something helpful about the system? We have lots of stuff that sits in production that feels like it might be helpful, but maybe it isn't anymore, right? Like, I've been in the industry way too freaking long, but like I remember the days of alerting on 95% disk full. That was different when the disk was 2 gigs versus now when the disks are huge, right? So we can do a little bit more intelligent alerting about some of that stuff. We want to get to the point where everything that is coming in and alerting a human user is important to the customer experience. And everything else, yeah, we're tracking it. We're getting this telemetry, or it goes to a dashboard or some other kind of graph, and it's beautiful, and there's colors, and it's great. But it's not necessarily going to wake someone up in the middle of the night. It's not going to pull them away from their kid's birthday party. All of these things are a whole lot more important than a lot of the stuff that we run. So dealing with some of this stuff, who knows what SLOs are? Who uses them actively? Y'all, I thought that would be more hands. So service level objectives. They are your team's goals for your production metrics. They're not SLAs. Service level agreement, that requires lawyers. Like there's contracts involved. And if things go wrong, you might owe people money. We're not talking about SLAs. We're talking about internally, what are your goals for your systems? So your service level objectives can kind of be anything that matters to your users. And when you set these, you set them in conjunction with your product managers and the other folks on your teams so that you know, hey, the users really like this component. How can we make sure this component is always up to what they want out of it, right? We're looking for sort of the boundaries of user tolerance there. And these can be absolutely different for every single service in your architecture, which is maybe why so few people are actually deploying them. They can be very, very complex. So there's some tooling in this space that's super interesting. Our friends at Noble 9 work in this space, and they help us with this internally. So what we want out of service level objectives is the ability to say, not every single instance of an error is worth notifying a human in real time. We want to have some wiggle room. We want to have some tolerance for how many alerts in a certain time period represent a real problem versus the internet's being the internet today. And there's something weird between our monitoring and the service itself. We want to get to a place where we are sure that when the thing alerts to a human, there is a real problem that needs to be remediated, and the SLOs are going to help us do that. The other component that comes with an SLO is the math involved, right? So my SLO looks like a percentage. It looks like 95% of the time this particular metric is within this tolerance. That means I have this other 5% that we call our error budget, right? That we can play with. And that's where we get some of this leeway to be able to say, oh, it's not quite an emergency yet. It's not quite to the point where I have to wake someone up about this. And maybe it doesn't reach that point, right? We get some grace period there, and if we don't hit the bad scope of it, we don't have to wake anybody up. We're still monitoring, right? We're still gonna know, come 9 o'clock tomorrow morning, someone logs in and says, oh, there was a little bit of a blip on this last night, but it didn't reach outside the tolerance. It didn't blow too much of our error budget for this week, or whatever your length might be. But it gives you that extra space to be able to say, yeah, okay, there's a problem here, we're going to investigate, but it wasn't bad enough to reach humans. So that helps you deal with some of your noisiest alerts, especially if they tend to be transient or they are things that you're seeing that you can't quite debug yet, haven't figured out exactly what's going on to get a permanent fix in, those kinds of things. We also use them for new releases that we're not sure how they're going to actually perform in production, because everything is beautiful in staging and then it meets the users and the users do whatever weird crap the users are gonna do, and like, you didn't flex that stuff in staging because you're not as weird as your users are. So you don't know what's going to happen. So you can also use them for that, to sort of get your bearings on how new code, new features are gonna work in production. So these are super helpful. There's a number of tools in the space that will work on this kind of thing. Some of this stuff will require a little bit more sophistication than other things, just kind of depending on how your metrics are collected and what they actually represent. Some of them will be easier to collect than others. Some stuff requires math. Other folks like to do calculus on them and take like the second derivative of things and get the rate of change. All that weird stuff can happen, and the tools can help you do all that great stuff. But the goals here for SLOs are to reduce the overall number of alerts by suppressing stuff that doesn't reach the tolerance and only alerting on the things that we know are super important. Automation. Who loves automation? Yeah, it's a DevOps conference. Of course you love automation. My goodness. So in 2022, we did a study across our user base that we were looking for how long it takes folks to resolve an alert. And what we found, somewhat disturbingly, is that something around 23% of all alerts that come into our platform that alert a human being, so a human was in the loop on this, were resolved in less than 5 minutes. Now, for folks who have been on call and have had to work incidents in the past, you know that 5 minutes is not deep triage. This is not, ooh, this is a weird thing I've never seen before. It's not, oh, go log into a bunch of systems and look at things and check the logs and check the graph. No, it's like you look at your phone and say, shit, that thing again, immediately fix it and resolve it. That is a waste of human time. And that was representing a very large chunk of the alerts that were coming into our platform from our various customers. You're wasting human time because they already understand exactly what that thing is. Now, in the other cases, they could have been transient and just resolved, but the humans had to resolve it, and that wasn't set up correctly. We don't actually know. But human resolution in under 5 minutes means that's a waste of people's time. So you have a lot of things in your architecture that we classify as what we call well understood. Stuff that you see all the time. And there's still a bunch of this junk out there, like, oh, we've got too many files in the temp directory, and we're filling the disk on this thing, or we have to do this with the logs, or whatever this kind of toily garbage is that still sits around, because you never get time for it. You don't get time to go back and patch it up and fix it and make it nice and pretty and efficient and modern. Like, it just happens, right? But we have all of this stuff. We want to get to a place where we can ask the machines to do this for us, because all I'm going to do as a human is log in and run a script. If it's 3 o'clock in the morning, I don't want to do that. I want to be in bed. I want the computer to do that for me, because the computer can run that script just as well as I can. Even better, because it doesn't have to log into anything the way I do. So we're going to push some of this stuff to the automation. You can do some of this stuff with human in the loop. As someone who has worked with automation practices now for like close to 15 years, like, I get it. There's a lot of folks who are very nervous about automation. I think everybody was scarred by Fantasia as kids. They're fearing like Mickey Mouse's mops, where the automation, he's trying to make his work easier, and like everything goes crazy, right? Your automation's not going to do that, right? It's not going to go bananas on you. It's just your scripts. It's the same stuff that you run when you log in. You're just going to give that job to the computers. And what we wanted to do is be triggered by the alert, so that the humans don't have to know. You can have it create a metric so that you know, okay, we're restarting this thing, 3 or 4 times a week now. That's fine. But I don't need to page anybody about it. I don't need Mark or Alice or anybody else to leave their dinner or their swim practice or the kids' soccer game or whatever else to deal with this, because the computer can just do it, and that's perfect. You can also write automation with human in the loop. We have lots of folks who will do this. The first time through the assumed solution, the computer runs it and then reports back, says, hey, you told me to reboot this thing when this alert triggers, but didn't work this time, so could you take a look at it? And you can absolutely do that with your automation, so that you're not relying on the automation to keep trying to spin it over and over and over again and just keeps failing. To be able to say, oh, hey, yeah, that didn't work, and kick it back out. We're looking for the novel alerts, the new stuff that we haven't seen before. There will still be plenty of those things in our complex distributed environments. They'll pop up all the time. But all this boring stuff, all this stuff that we see all the time, all the things that could be resolved in under 5 minutes, give it to the computers. We can also use automation as part of our incident response process to help pre-populate the sort of command center that we might have for our incident responders. So looking at how we can go out and pre-populate maybe a Slack channel with links to all the dashboards, to where the data appears in the logs, any of those kinds of things. We can also use automation to help us do that as well. All that's going to speed up our incident response process and preserve our customer experience as much as possible. It gives us the ability to be able to say, okay, well, here's my responder. We're going to tell them, hey, there's a problem, log into this Slack channel, and they're going to log in, and all the stuff that's going to be there would have been the things that they were going to do anyway as a responder. Well, I need to take a look at this dashboard. I need to take a look at this log. It's right there. So you can also use your automation to help you there. Great. Not necessarily to a point where that's going to create fewer alerts. It's just going to help you remediate the ones that do make it through the process. So the final piece is machine learning, specifically what we call AI ops. And AI ops is weird because that title was sort of given to it by Gartner and not necessarily by the industry. So, and it sounds like they're starting to change what it actually means. So stand by, things may be changing. But the definition as we work with it now is really intelligent alert grouping. The ability to say, I have a bunch of alerts on the system right now, and I need to know Are they all related to one particular problem or one particular cluster of problems? So the hard part with this is that y'all's alerts are terrible, right? Because I've seen them. And you cannot send, hey, this is broken, to the machine learning model and expect it to learn anything from it. It's still garbage in, garbage out with these models. What we want to do is help the model help us. So that, say I've got a problem on this database in my backend somewhere, and the alerts start coming in from the database itself. The database has a name. Maybe it's customer production data US West or whatever that is. And so it's starting to gather up all these alerts. And the middle layers start to alert as well. Now, if the middle layer sends an alert that says, problem on the database, and that's all it says, the model has no idea what database it's actually talking about. But if it says, the alert from my middle layer says, hey, problem on database, customer data production US West, then the model can start to say, oh yeah, all these alerts that are coming in are all related to this problem on this particular database that we already know about. So I can get fewer alerts, I can get less noise, I have everything sort of collected up. This does take work to get this to function in your systems, because all of these components are probably sending alerts through different mechanisms. Because why not, right? Because they are all owned by different teams, because they're all on different kinds of platforms. Hopefully they're in the same cloud, but who knows what people have been allowed to do. So aligning all of these to the same sort of language, making sure you have standards around the names of services, the names of assets deployed into the infrastructure, super important. For folks who have, say, a consulting role or that kind of internal leadership role as far as like SRE or DevOps titles go, this is a topic that you'll want to address with folks so that you can make better use of these models. When you have these tools available, they are incredibly powerful, but you have to make sure that your data is aligned to the point where this will actually work for you, because otherwise it just doesn't. Stuff just falls on the floor, or you get all of these alerts because nobody knows that all of this stuff is related. The humans that work on this system probably know exactly how things are configured and what they talk to, and they have a mental map of the system diagram, but the AI model doesn't. It doesn't know. So we have to get to a point where we're helping it out. All right, so our goals overall, because alert fatigue can be so taxing on folks and has all those ramifications we looked at the beginning, in addition to just completely burning people out mentally, we want to get past it. So we're going to do all this work to reduce our overall alert load. We're looking at getting just to the things that are most meaningful, that absolutely have to have human response right now. We want to get to a low volume of high urgency alerts. Ideally, you'd love to see only high urgency alerts come into your human responders and have as many of those low urgency things taken care of by automation as possible, especially if you've seen them before. If you already have a runthis.sh script for it, we want to get rid of it for human response. Most alerts that then sort of trickle through all of this process are going to be the cool stuff we've never seen before. The neat things that sort of emerge out of distributed complex systems. The stuff that we didn't anticipate. The weird weather patterns on the internet that make things kind of strange and unusual. You're like, oh, we've never seen that before. Or, oh, that actually looks like a bug, right? The things that actually have meaning to the technical responders rather than the boring stuff. So, number one, we're cleaning up alerts. I know it takes work, and it sounds boring, but it's very exciting when you're on the receiving end of fewer alerts, and we all love that. We're going to focus on what our users care about, and if you're not using SLOs, you can kind of mimic that behavior by making sure that the alerts that you have reflect the things that are important to your actual user base. Prioritize those alerts and those metrics. There may be stuff that you kind of use as a proxy to be able to say, oh, when this particular service has too much memory utilization, it slows down. That's great. You know it slows down, and that's what users care about. That's fine. We want to get the junk out of the human workflow with as much automation as we can. The machines are very good with running all the scripts that you've already written. You already have the scripts, you already trust them, let the machine do them. And then we want to train the machines to be effective teammates. This will get better over time as the machine learning models sort of catch up, but you want to get to a place where you and the machines are speaking the same language and you're not holding a lot of knowledge in human brains. We have to get that stuff out into the system so that the machines can learn from it as well. And whether that means changing the text of our alerts or making things more explicit, that's what we want to do. Because good data into the model gets us good data on the back end. If you are in a place where your manager is like, that sounds expensive, all the stuff at the beginning was expensive too. Missing alerts, having longer incidents, having more downtime or outages, reducing that overall customer experience is also expensive. People leave your service over that. They might abandon it completely. They may close their accounts, depending on what kind of work that you actually do. Reputational damage can happen from long-lasting alerts. There's all kinds of other things in it. So we want to get to that point. We also have the human factors. We don't want people to leave because they're burned out. So we have lots of resources about this. If you want to scan the QR code, there is a whole lot of documentation that we've collected up over the years about alert fatigue. And if you'd like to do more reading about SLAs, SLOs, and SLIs, that's there, as well as AIOps. We have an entire white paper on automated remediation. If that's something that you might be looking at, I highly recommend it. Like, just get that stuff out of your humans' time. If you haven't looked at the SRE workbook for SLOs, that's also interesting reading. And as I mentioned before, Noble 9 helps us out with that. So finally, parting, if you're still in town Thursday night and you'd like to talk about Backstage, we'd love to talk to you. We have a meetup Thursday night at Aviation House. And yeah, we'd love to see you there. Otherwise, thank you all for coming back to day 2. This is an amazing event. I'm glad you're all here.